Favorite sense? See, I guess I would say probably hearing. I like to hear things. I like to hear the rain and storms. I like to hear music. But I didn't ask you to pick your favorite sense because we actually are going to talk about senses today. That spurred from a conversation I had with my son earlier this week. But it was about picking your favorite of something. Because when we pick the favorite of something, whether it's a thing or it's a person or something else, we leave things out. Something is left out. What that can do is create hurt feelings and create jealousy from those who were left out or the things that were left out. And jealousy will be our very fun topic today of our story. We are in our summer series called The Library. We are hearing different Old Testament stories and then looking at them for what the story says, but then really how we still use the lessons from those stories today. And today will be jealousy with the story of Joseph and his brothers. Now, Joseph has this huge, amazing story. If you look at starting really in Genesis 37 and keep going, it's an incredible story. But we're going to actually focus on his brothers today. Because his story kicks off and really happens because of what his brothers do to him, and a lot of it has to do with jealousy. Jealousy is a very dangerous thing, and I think it's something we really do need to keep a close eye on in our lives. So I want you to think about this today, or keep this in your minds. When we are jealous of others, we forget that God is jealous for us. When we're jealous of others, we forget that God is jealous for us. God is jealous for us? Yes, he is. Exodus 34:14, do not worship any other God, for the Lord whose name is a jealous God. When we get jealous of other people, other things, we're focused and devoted on that, not fully focused on God. God is jealous. He wants us for himself. So we're going to see the story of Joseph and the coat and everything you might be familiar with, but focus on his brothers, how they're jealous, and what came about and what they did to Joseph. So we're going to read that, Genesis chapter 37. We're going to walk through the story a little bit here in pieces, and then we'll talk at the end about what jealousy does. So I'm going to start with Genesis 37, verses 1 through 8. We will hear Joseph's story here. It says, Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. All right, so first off, real quick, Joseph's dad name is Jacob. It says in here, Israel. They're the same guy. Jacob is given the name Israel in Genesis 35:10, just if you see that. So Jacob and Israel, same guy, that's Joseph's dad. Joseph's the favorite, at least seemingly so. One theory is that Joseph is the oldest son with Rachel. His mom, Rachel, died in Genesis 35, giving birth to Benjamin. So he's not the oldest of all the brothers, but the oldest with that mom. Very possibly why he's one of the favorites. So he goes out, he gives a bad report about his brothers. This is seen as evil, and it seems to be work-related, what they're doing while they're out in the fields. Joseph's doing his job, gives a bad report. It's not good. So his father now gives him the famous coat. This is the coat of many colors, the musical, the Technicolor Dream coat, the whole deal. This is the coat. It says it's ornate. This is a royalty-style coat. It meant something, and he was the only one to get it. And the brothers are jealous of him, jealous of the coat, jealous of their father's admiration of him, and all the things. They couldn't say a good thing about him. If that's not enough, now he has a dream, his first dream. Dreams are going to be a massive part of Joseph's life if you keep going in Genesis and learn about him. But here's the first one. They are binding sheaves of grain. Joseph's sheaf rises up, and all the others bow to him. They bow to him. Joseph stands up, the others bow to him, and he's telling his brothers this. So we have the coat, and now this dream. This doesn't help it, because they're like, wait, you're going to have power over us? Yeah. But he doesn't stop there. He has another dream. Let's look at the next few verses, 9 through 11. Then he had another dream. He told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, His father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. All right, now we have dream number 2. Dreams were a huge deal. Back in this day, they weren't just seen as things you're thinking about or the subconscious. They were actually believed to be coming from the divine realm, so they meant something very real. Now we have the sun, moon, and stars bowing to his brothers, and his dad seems to take it with a little bit of humility and trying to understand what's going on. Like, wait, your mother and I will bow to you? Now he's taking on the whole family that he will be over, and this is scaling even bigger than that. So his dad, it says, keeps the matter in mind. Kind of like if his dad's processing what's happening. But the brothers, their blood now boils up to 11. Joseph is the favorite, thinks he'll rule over us and the entire family. He's trying to level up even more, and they can't handle it. So now they have some action. Let's see what happens here. This is going to be 12 through 20. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I'm going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They moved on from here," the man answered. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers, found them near Dothan. But when they saw him in the distance and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dream." So Joseph is sent out again to check on his brothers. He gets a little lost, gets pointed in the right direction. And now they see him coming. And this is where things really escalate from all the jealousy that's been building. They say, "Here comes the dreamer." And this is not in a good way, like, "Oh, that's nice, he's a dreamer." No, this is in a big negative way. They say, "Let's kill him. Not let's beat him up. Not let's yell at him. Let's kill him and throw his body in a cistern." Cisterns were around. They had rainy seasons and dry seasons where they lived, so they would hope that the cisterns would catch the excess rainfall in the rainy season to have for the dry season. They're going to use this and throw his body in it. They're like, "We have to be rid of him. That's going to make our jealousy better, right? If we kill him and get rid of him, that's just going to make it better." So they hatch the plan. Did they do it? Let's find out. 21 through 24. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into a cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. So the murder plot changes thanks to Reuben. Reuben's the oldest. He says, "Don't kill him. Let's hide him." And there's a few thoughts as to why. One, Reuben being the oldest brother, something happened to Joseph. He would have been probably getting in the most trouble as the oldest. The other one is he wants to actually save Joseph. He is not on good terms with Jacob right now. A few chapters back, Reuben went and slept with one of his dad's concubines, which is a big no-no. All right, he does this. It's seen as a social challenge. It's a huge sign of disrespect. So he's like, "Hey, if I save my brother, maybe I'll get back in dad's good graces." So his brothers go for it. They take the robe, the gift, and they throw him into the empty cistern. Now what? Verses 25 through 28. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern, sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. So we have a caravan coming by. There's Ishmaelites and Midianites, same group of people, just referred to differently sometimes. Judah now, another brother, changes the plan. Let's not kill him. Let's sell him. Right? Let's not actually hurt him. He's our brother, right? Let's not hurt him. We'll just sell him. Again, so much better, right? They sell him for 20 shekels of silver. The going rate for the sale of a slave in this time was 20 shekels of silver. So they sell their brother as a slave. They didn't kill him, but they sold him. Now what? Final part of our story for today. This is going to be 29 through 36. It says this. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He then went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it's your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him." Joseph was surely torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on a sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. All right, so Reuben comes back to the cistern. He had been out with the flock, probably doing his work. Now his plan is to come back, rescue Joseph. Problem is, Joseph's gone. So Reuben's like, oh no, now what? So now the group decides we're going to take the coat, we'll dip it in the blood of a goat that we killed. So we have the cover up in the story is now being hatched now. So they do that, they take it to their father. He says, "We found this. Is it your son's? Not is it Joseph's, not is it our brother Joseph, it is your sons." Right? They are completely disassociating from Joseph. And the father recognizes it, recognizes the robe, the coat. The big source of jealousy is now the recognition of what's happened. He assumes some ferocious animal has attacked him. He mourns and mourns, refusing to be comforted. Meanwhile, Joseph is sold to Potiphar. This is where Joseph's story takes off. We're going to stop at this point, but his story really takes off and the dreams start to come to fruition. But it starts here because his brothers acted out of jealousy. So I want to look at what jealousy really does. So the big thing, jealousy hurts. Jealousy hurts us, it hurts those around us, and it hurts God because we aren't fully devoted and focused on him. Remember, God gets jealous for us. 2 Corinthians 11:2, "I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy. I promised you to one husband, to Christ, so that I might present you as a pure virgin to him." We're God's, and God wants us for himself. Being jealous of others takes us from that. So jealousy for us comes in a few ways, and it hurts in different ways. And I want to look first at two ways that jealousy creeps in and how it can hurt us. And the first is if we are jealous straight up of a person, of another person. We look at the jealousy in this story, and Joseph's brothers were jealous of him. He was given this coat that any of them could have been given. Right? It went to Joseph. He was right there. He's just part of the family. He was just another brother, but they were jealous of him. They were jealous of him, of a person. This is so incredibly common. Jealousy happens everywhere. So much so, it's not even just humans. Do you know animals get jealous? Monkeys apparently get jealous. I love monkeys, so I was glad I found this study. I know, but stay with me. There's a 2017 study in Frontiers in Ecology and Evolution journal. They studied male TT monkeys. They took them away from their mate and watched as another male interacted with the female. They found increased levels of the hormones related to aggression, competition, social stress, social exclusion. That sounds like jealousy. The monkey got jealous of another monkey because he was getting the attention. There's nothing special about all these monkeys. Just regular old Joe monkey, but he got jealous. Now, I am not going to straight up compare us to monkeys today, but we get jealous of people. Think about people that are just somewhat close to you, somebody you might rub shoulders with. Could be a family member that's the favorite or always talked about. Might be the coworker that gets all the accolades, or the supervisor really likes that person and doesn't seem to notice you. Might be the neighbor that everybody on the block wants to hang out with. You can see where we're going. A person that you could come into contact with, but you're jealous of. And the jealousy starts in our hearts and in our heads. I want to be them. I want to be them. Not happy with who we are anymore because they seem to have it better, right? They're on our level. They're not a higher up. Why can't we just be them? Jealousy hurts us in this way. It takes us away from being who we are and how we were made in God's eyes. God didn't make us like them. If he wanted us to be them, he would have made us that way. We want the worth they have, but then forget our worth to God, right? We think then we're not seen because they are by everybody else. And this one sucks because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, but it feels like we're not seen. So we are jealous of somebody that maybe is seen. And we think less of ourselves. We aren't good enough. We aren't attractive enough, funny enough, have the right personality. So we drive ourselves down. We push ourselves down. And when we do that, we forget that God is jealous for us. God's jealous for us. He made us in a certain way. God gives us our worth. It has nothing to do with looks or personality or any of that. When we're jealous of another person, we lose sight of our own worth to God, and we lose sight of God himself. Thankfully, God doesn't lose sight of us. God is jealous because he wants us to be as he made us. He wants us to find our worth in him and him alone, not trying to be somebody else because we're jealous of them. Be who we are, which is God's children and made in his image, and find our worth in being that person, not another person. So that's jealousy of a person. Then there's jealousy of, I would say, a status, or maybe even a lifestyle. If you look at Joseph's dreams, they were about him having authority or ruling over people, the status level that he got to, a hierarchy type of thing. And jealousy here comes with being jealous of what somebody has or their status or their life. There's a somewhat older song called Rockstar by the band Nickelback. And I know listening to Nickelback comes with a whole bunch of things if you know the band. But they have a song called Rockstar. It's all about getting rockstar status, about having VIP access to club, wanting a big house on an episode of MTV Cribs, vintage guitars, bodyguards, this whole deal, this whole lifestyle and status. And the song starts out by saying, life hasn't gone that way. Because they're jealous of people that have that status. It's easy to get jealous of somebody's status or lifestyle. It's not hard. The high-level executive at your company, you want that. Or the high-ranking person in the community or at a club. Or just someone you knew in the past that now, as you look at them, seems to have it all. It's that having that all part. Maybe we're not as jealous of them, but we're jealous of what they have. And the thinking goes, now I want more. I'm not satisfied. This, whatever this is, isn't good enough. I want the money, the prestige, the house, the trips, the whatever. So I have to go get more because I don't have enough. So now instead of driving ourselves down, we're beating ourselves up. Now we're trying to claw and climb our way up too much to get more. And many times this more either is outside of our actual means or it's just going to cost us way too much to go get it. And I'm not talking about just working hard to earn a little extra money, but this is going way up and is setting the sights too high out of jealousy. Jealousy hurts us when we act in this way. It hurts because we think God hasn't given us enough or given me that thing that I deserve. So we try to go get something and it costs us a lot. The pursuit of it hurts physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When we don't get what we're after, or even if we do, hurts physically. You're just so worn out, so beat up after going, you can't even enjoy however far you've got. You went so hard that you literally hurt your body. Emotionally, you went so hard after you've checked out of all the relationships. You haven't had any time for them, the people in your lives that were a big part of you, and now you're realizing how much that hurts. Or spiritually, diminished God's role in our lives. We took matters into our own hands and in turn stepped out of the hands of God. We relied on ourselves and not on God because God didn't give us what we wanted, or he wasn't going to give us what we wanted. We thought we knew better, and jealousy does this. We might actually get that thing we're going after, but then we realize it fades or it's not all cracked up to be. Your bank account's bigger, but the money doesn't make you happy or bring fulfillment. The vacation or the trips are over. The prestige is more exhausting than life-giving. We were jealous of our status, and we got to the status and realized it wasn't worth being jealous of. Or we didn't get it, and it beat us up so much that it hurts. We forgot our status as a child of God and follower of Jesus and what comes with that. Remember, God is jealous for us. The only status that God cares about us working towards and to strive towards is for the status of a follower. And being a follower doesn't seem like a great status, but it is because it's the status as a follower of Jesus. That's the one that offers us the most. The social status or the work status doesn't offer grace. Many times it doesn't offer forgiveness if we mess up. And think about social status. This is what Jesus came to flip on his heads. If we go back to Matthew 5 in the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes, Jesus starts, blessed are, ... And it's all these groups of people that are seen as marginalized or less than, and Jesus calls them blessed because he flipped all that status on his head. Social and societal status is temporary and conditional. It will eventually go away. There's very little grace and forgiveness and real love. But status as followers of Jesus doesn't go away. There's unlimited and unmerited grace and forgiveness, and there's sacrificial love. We don't have to drive ourselves up to Jesus to get that status like we do for social status. We just have to open ourselves up and let Jesus in. Jealousy robs us of him and our status of being his. So jealousy hurts us when we're jealous of others. Jealousy hurts us when we're jealous of a status. But here's the thing, jealousy also hurts others. Joseph's brothers were jealous and literally sold him with no idea what was going to happen. that hurt him, that also hurts their father. So this all came out of their jealousy. Last week we talked about a story from an old Summer Olympics. We're going to flip to a kind of Winter Olympics story real quick. Many of you are familiar with the story of Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding from back in the day. They were two rival skaters, and at one point Tanya Harding was finishing above Nancy Kerrigan, then it kind of flipped. And at one point, Tanya Harding supposedly was worried that Nancy Kerrigan would take her spot on an Olympic team. So after a practice one day, Nancy Kerrigan was attacked by two hitmen that turns out were contracted by Tanya Harding's ex-husband. And there's a ton of conspiracy theories, documentaries out there about who knew what and when and how it played out, but jealousy and envy led to a literal physical attack of someone that hurt somebody. Now, our jealousy might not lead us to actually go beat somebody up. I hope it doesn't. But it doesn't mean we don't hurt people in another way. Jealousy hurts others. Maybe we attack a person, not physically, but this happens out of words pretty easily. Words will do this, right? If you spit words at somebody, mama's boy, teacher's pet, suck up, everybody loves you, way to make us look bad. These can be direct shots at someone. They can be passive-aggressive shots, but they hurt them. Many of us have been on the receiving end of those. We know how they feel. That person probably did nothing wrong, at least not intentionally, but we hurt back because we're hurt. And that hurt comes from the jealousy. We aren't seen like they are, and we want to be, so we try to bring them down. We might also separate from someone, right? We get jealous of somebody we are in contact with, or even a friend, and we just separate. We don't maybe exclude them, but we just kind of like, we're going to go over here and walk away. And that hurts them because they don't know what they did. We didn't talk to them about it. It hurts because we got jealous of them. We might also attack a status or that accomplishment. What they got. We say, they didn't deserve it where they are. They didn't earn it. They took the easy way to get it. We try to diminish it out of jealousy. Here's the thing. If we try to diminish or take something of a status or an accomplishment, it doesn't just go to us. We just hurt somebody for it. We diminish it, it doesn't change what we have. But we hurt someone through hurting their accomplishment that maybe they actually worked hard to go get. And it comes out of jealousy. We also hurt the other people around us. Now, we may be jealous directly of a person, have a line of sight of jealousy, but there's always other people affected. Our attitude changes, our behavior changes, we change, and it isn't for the better when we're jealous. And that hurts the people close to us, the people around us. They don't recognize us like they used to. We become almost like a different person to them. And maybe that sounds extreme, but it happens, and it's a root for a lot of damage, and it all comes from this feeling of jealousy. And the damage also continues because we hurt God. When we become someone else to God, when we sin against God, it hurts. It hurt God when Adam and Eve first sinned in Genesis 1. It hurts God now when we sin. And jealousy is a big part of it, because jealousy means we're so focused on someone or something else that it gets all of our devotion, our time, our energy, and you could say all of our worship. God is jealous for us and wants our worship just for him. God's jealous because he wants us to be who he created us to be and to act in the way he created us, with love, with peace, with patience, with kindness, not with jealousy or envy or selfishness. So we want to put down the jealousy of people and status and be picked up by Jesus and the status as his follower. We got to try to combat jealousy. Combat it. And I know it's easier said than done. We will all inevitably get jealous of somebody at some point in our lives, or a status or something. But how can we work our way out of it, or attempt to prevent it? We'll wrap up with this. The first thing I want to encourage you with is to see people for who they really are. Get to know people. Hear them. See them as God does. Relationships. Get away from the competition, not us versus them, but us and them. Be together. See them without trying to be them. And then see the status that matters. Your status as a follower of Jesus outweighs, outshines, and outdoes any other status. And it might be hard to see now. Others may not see it, but God does. And it can't be diminished. It can't be taken away by anybody. It's yours, it's mine, it's ours, so let's embrace that status. And then help others, don't hurt others. Serve those in need, first off. Serve those in need, but then serve those that aren't in need. The ones that society would say are just fine. Serve them too. Serving others is an antidote to jealousy. It takes the focus off of us and it puts it on God and others. When it's on God and others, I think jealousy runs away scared. It wants us versus them. It doesn't like the team approach or the helpful approach. So let's combat jealousy and always remember that God wants us, all of us, and every part of us, because God is jealous for us. Let's pray. God, I thank you for this morning. And God, I thank you that you are jealous for us, God, that you want all of us. And God, that you're jealous for us because of what you did for us, the love you showed for us, the grace you give us, and for sending your Son to die for us. So God, I pray we would remember that you are jealous for us, and that would help us not be jealous of others, whether it's a person or a status or anything else, God. That we would learn and live and strive to be content with who you've made us to be and where you've put us and what you've given us. To be content, God, and to embrace it and to love it and to be appreciative of it. So God, as hard as that is, as much of a struggle as I know that is, I pray that you would continually put that on our hearts. God, just remind us to constantly be pulled back to you. I pray this in your name. Amen.